Welcome back, 4L scholars. So, this is part 2 of your grammar practice for the present subjunctive. If you haven't watched the video, the lesson with the grammar notes and practice part 1 for the subjunctive yet, go ahead and stop this video now. Go back and watch that. Go through those practice exercises first. But today's part 2. This is pretty similar. Okay. So it's in two parts. In part A, we're doing our old friend here, identifying what conjugation a verb is just by looking at it. Okay, this is actually something that's it's basically a exercise that you've been doing since 1L on some level, but it was never super important until now. I mean, it's really, really, really important now that we're doing the subjunctive that you can tell what conjugation a verb is just by looking at it. So we will, as usual, do the first couple of this and then show the answers for all of them. And then in part B, we're taking that knowledge, okay, and we're changing a verb from the indicative into the subjunctive. With this, with the knowledge of what the vowel change for the subjunctive is supposed to be. Again, if you haven't seen the grammar notes and practice from the last couple days yet, what I just said probably won't mean anything. So go back and watch that if you haven't yet. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So again, all we're doing in part A is identifying the conjugation of these Latin verbs. They're written out with all 4 principal parts. You see all of them here. Okay? And you just got to follow the following steps to figure out what conjugation the verb is. Okay? First, you go to the second principal part. You chop off the RE. And then you look at what vowel you were left with once you chop off the RE. All right? And there's only 4 options, literally 4 options, and that's it. So if you have a first conjugation verb, your vowel will be a long A. If you have a second conjugation verb, it will be a long E. If you have a third conjugation, it will be a short E. And if you have a fourth, it will be a long I. Okay, so armed with that knowledge here, our first verb here, dedico, dedicare, with that long A, this would be first conjugation. Okay. Next verb, cato, catere. So we go to the second principal part, we chop off the RE. We see we have a short E. Short E, third conjugation. All right. And you hopefully can start to see the pattern here. So praesto, praestare, second part, chop off the RE. You have a long A, so this one's first. Okay, takeo, takere, chop off the RE. You have a long E, so it's second. Okay, and so forth. So, if you like, you can go ahead and stop the video now, pause, and go through the the next few here. So go ahead and pause now. All right, and hopefully your answers look something like this. Okay, so expleo, explere, second, pono, ponere, third, invito, invitare, first, nescio, nescire, long I, fourth, facio, facere, short E, third, and audio, audire, fourth, because of that long I. All right, now, for part B, we need to know one further step, basically. So we can actually just stick with the the little graphic that we made here, and use a different color just to show. So this is our stem vowel for each conjugation. in the present subjunctive, really the only thing that changes, with some slight exceptions, is to go from present indicative to present subjunctive. For first conjugation, the only thing that changes is that long A turns into an E. For a second conjugation verb, the E becomes EA. For a third conjugation, it becomes an A. And then for a fourth conjugation, it becomes IA. All right? There's one little not really exception, but remember we talked about last time that species of verbs called a third IO verb, which is really just a third conjugation verb that has that short E in the second principal part. But in the first person singular, the first principal part, you notice it has IO, like facio, facere. Those verbs actually work like fourth. So even if you have the short E, they still they make the vowel change as if they were a fourth conjugation. We do have I think one of those, or two of them, I think. That we'll see in just a second. So make sure you have this, if not written down in front of you, then in your grammar notes from last time. All right. So with that in mind, let's look at a couple of these, and then you can pause and do the rest, and then come back and check your answers. So again, we have a conjugated verb. And actually, if you look at it, they're the exact same verbs from up here in the same order. So you can actually double check what conjugation they are from your work up top. Okay, so we see our first verb is dedicat. This is in the indicative mood. We're going to make it subjunctive. Remember, the only thing that changes in the present subjunctive is your stem vowel changes based on this. So in other words, most of the time, you can kind of cheat and just look at your conjugated verb here. And if it's first, second, or fourth conjugation, really you can just look at the vowel that you have here already right before the ending. And since it's dedicat, we know we're going to change it to dedicat. How did we get there? Well, remember, our stem vowel is an A. A turns into E in the subjunctive. Okay. Now, the reason that I said, that's kind of not the best shortcut is that it works for first, second, and fourth conjugations, but not third. And the reason is what we're going to see right now. We have the verb cadit. Well, cadit has an I in it for various reasons right before the ending. But if you look back up here, we said cato catere, right? It's the same verb. Catere, the infinitive, shows us it's a third conjugation verb. The reason that there's an I there is for reasons we don't have time to get into right now. Third conjugation verbs, they conjugate a little weirdly, where in most of the forms, their E changes to an I in the present indicative. So, so I say that to say, just looking at the I might not, doesn't give it away. You do have to know this is a third conjugation verb. But once we know that, we can make the change. We know it's third, so our infinitive, the E from the infinitive turns into an A, and so we can change this I into an A. So instead of cadit, we have K dot. All right. Luckily, number 3 is much nicer to us. This is praesto praestare from number 3 up above, which, as you recall, is a first conjugation verb, and we see that nice long A right there. So long A turns into E. Okay. So instead of praestator, we have praestator. All right. We'll do one more because number 4 is maybe a little tricky if you don't have your grammar notes handy for whatever reason. So we have the verb takeo from number 4 up above, takeo takere. So we know it's a second conjugation verb. All right. And so we know if it's second conjugation, the E turns into EA. All right, we can even write that in if we want. Might make writing the rest a little tricky, but whatever. Now we know our initial stem is not going to change. That can't change. So takeya. But remember that for 5 out of the 6 forms, so second person, third person, singular, and then first, second, third person, plural, the endings are exactly the same for indicative and subjunctive. The only one of those that changes is first person singular. And if you go back and look, that means the O from first person singular in the indicative turns into M in the subjunctive. So our answer will be takeya. Okay? So go ahead and pause the video here and go ahead and try out number 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then when you unpause, the answers will be here. So go ahead and pause now. And here we go. Here are the rest of them. So explentur becomes expleantur. Ponimur, remember, third conjugation verb. Ponoponeret. So that I is kind of tricky. It's trying to trick us. We know it's third conjugation though. So we have an A instead. Invitas, simple first, becomes invites. Nescio, nescire, gives us nescit here. So that I turns into IA. Facimus. Again, this one we have to be a little careful with because facio, facared, this is a third conjugation verb, but it happens to be a third IO verb, remember. So this is actually, ironically, in the subjunctive, the IO verbs are a little less challenging because we don't have to go back and worry about, oh yeah, was that a third or a third IO? I gotta look at, okay, well, here we can just treat it like a fourth and look at the I and say, okay, well, I gives us IA, faciamus. Okay? And then this one you might have tripped some of us up. Number 10, audiunt, in the third person plural of the present indicative. Remember that one of the weird things about the present indicative of fourth conjugation verbs is we have to add this extra letter U in, just because it should be audint if we follow the pattern. But Romans didn't like how that sounds, so they added that U in to give it a little better sound. But when we go into the subjunctive, it drops out. So we can pretend it's not there, and now we just have that I that turns into IA. So our present subjunctive for third person singular becomes audiant. All right, scholars, thanks for watching, and again, make sure you are following along. If you have any questions, any problems, feel free to send me a message. I can send you any of the documents individually. If you're a hybrid learner, I can save a copy for you to give you a hard copy when you come back into the building. So anyway, I will talk to you guys soon, and thank you for watching. Let me know if you have any questions.